But the reality is that people are starved for real world connection. And when you get a well-timed mail piece that is personalized to your liking, all of a sudden you've got this high value piece for your end customer. The conversions are fantastic.
When I was introduced to Ryan Ferrier, he told me a little bit about his career arc and where he went from being an executive assistant 20 years ago and now to CEO of lob.com. By his own description, he has a non-technical background. And so he's really had to adapt as he's moved through his career into technical industries. And what I found interesting is he's currently working on modernizing direct mail. And he's doing it by integrating various technical capabilities. So you got non-technical CEO working on integrating technical capabilities. Super interesting. I think there's a lot of non-technical founders or CEOs out there that are listening that could learn a lot from his story and what he's doing. So I'm excited to have him on the show today. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here, Lee.
Yeah, this will be fun. I've only had one other person on the show talk about direct mail. I mean, go figure. But so this will be fun to get your take. Before we get into what you're doing with direct mail at Lob, let's look at a little bit of your background and your story, because I think that's valuable to a lot of founders listening. There's a lot of parallels there, I think. Give us like the 2-cent version of, you starting out in your career and what led you to now your role as CEO.
Sure. Well, after college, I moved out to the Bay Area. I moved to Oakland, actually to do social work. I was a part of a program that could have placed me in a number of different cities across the U.S. And I actually just got placed in West Oakland. And so I spent 2 years out there working at a homeless shelter and working with local youth at a youth center. Had really, really eye-opening and awesome experience. But after 2 years, realized that I likely was not the world's greatest social worker. I was good at making friends with folks, but I wasn't really getting to the change that we'd like to see with some of those folks. Sure. But I myself was radically changed. And so I was kind of looking at myself like, what's next? I assumed I'm originally from the East Coast. I grew up in Philadelphia. So I assumed that I would move back to the East Coast. Mm-hmm. I was at the time actually in San Francisco and randomly actually I was at a church service and I met this engineer from NASA who was moving to the Bay Area to start at a startup. It was called PowerSet. They were doing natural language processing for search. And NLP is really the basis in the early days of machine learning and AI. And this was in 2006. And he's like, hey, my boss, needs some help around the office. Maybe you could apply to be an admin. And so I interviewed with the COO and the CEO. And I remember I went to University Avenue in Palo Alto, where there's a lot of startup incubators right next to Stanford. I walked into this interview. I had like a tie and a jacket. And the COO, he was interviewing me, laughed at me. He's like, why are you wearing a tie, dude? Everyone's in hoodies. And at the time, the MacBook Pro, the MacBook Pro, silver MacBook Pros, they just come out. Yeah. And they all had these MacBook Pros. And I was like, I felt like I'd stepped into the future. Like he had a Palm Trio with like a stylus. And I was like, man, these people are like, yeah, exactly. These people are like super techie. I did not have a technical background. Yeah. But I fumbled my way into starting as a contractor and then eventually working as the executive assistant there. And really had no idea that my life would, radically change as a result of that job. But I started there. We ended up hiring an amazing team, a bunch of people from NASA, a bunch of people from Stanford, Xerox PARC, all who really early days were doing AI and machine learning before it was called that. I grew in responsibilities there. We raised venture capital funding from Founders Fund, which I think your listeners might know. It's Peter Thiel and Luke Nozick and Sean Parker.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea who these dudes were. Like I wouldn't, like no
Yeah.
clue. I remember we raised our Series A and I was the executive assistant. I closed the round, got all the paperwork and did everything. And my CEO was like, Ryan, great job. And he's like, I need you to organize a dinner for everybody, all of our new investors. And so I organized the dinner and he's like, hey, you organized the dinner. Why don't you come?
Mm-hmm.
And so I came to the dinner and it was like literally Peter Thiel, Sean Parker, Luke Nozick, our founders.
At the time, did you even know who these people were?
No, I had no clue. And I told my mom after. My mom was like, "How's the dinner?" I was like, "It was cool." She's like, "How are the investor people?" And I was like, "Oh, they're kind of nerdy, but it was fun." I had no idea what I'd like.
The fact that you're having this conversation with your mom, I think, tells the whole story.
Yeah, to give you an idea, honestly, I didn't have a laptop until my senior year of college, and so anyway, I was non-technical as non-technical gets. I thought, it'd either be a teacher or a social worker or something like that. But fast forward,
foreshadowing, it sets you up perfectly for direct mail, right?
There you go. Exactly.
I love a laptop. I'm the guy.
I'm analog. I've been analog for a while. But I think one thing that I've never lacked is effort and hard work. And so I just worked my ass off. They promoted me a couple of times. I ended up doing HR and then business operations. 2 years later, the business was actually acquired by Microsoft to be a part of the Bing search engine. And so right at that time, two of the engineers who I had helped hire were building apps on Facebook. And so they had built a top 5 app on Facebook. It was called Friends for Sale. And they were like, yo, don't stay at Microsoft. Come join us, build this business, Friends for Sale, and be our COO. And I was like, sure, why not? And our COO, his name was Steve Newcomb. Yeah. I was like, I've been watching Steve for 2.5 years here. I can do this.
And you played some dinners, so you got it.
Exactly. And so we ended up, we were profitable from day one, and it was really Siki and Alex. They were the co-founders. They were the brain trust there, but they wanted me to run the business operations. We were profitable, but we ended up raising venture capital from Lightspeed Venture Partners. We had Jeremy Liu as our lead investor, and he was awesome. I felt like being on, in the boardroom for the first time. I kind of got a master class from him. Mm-hmm. He's been, wildly successful and is no longer investing. But again, it was like right place, right time. I don't know how it happens like twice in a row, but Facebook had just opened the platform. We were really early. We were a top 5 app. And then Zynga came along and they were rolling up for an IPO, and they acquired us. We were about 40 people at the time. We'd only raised about $4 million of venture. And once again, I had this decision like, hey, do I go to this bigger company or do I stay with a startup? And then, the engineering core at PowerSet, my initial spot was amazing. We had, the guy who founded GitHub, Tom Preston Werner, was at PowerSet. Actually, he was one of my roommates for a little bit. Chris Van Pelt and Lucas Bewald started a company called Crowdflower, and they were doing that while I was doing this company that was called Serious Business. That was the gaming company that we had done. And over those 2 years, they were trying to get big businesses to believe in machine learning and particularly data labeling for machine learning. So they had a solution that was a lot like Amazon Mechanical Turk, for those folks that might be familiar with that. But it's a system where you just give a bunch of data to a crowd of people who do little micro judgments, like label query result pair for searches and say, hey, this is a good fit, not a fit, or irrelevant, those sorts of things. So they were doing that. And at first all around natural language processing, but then later did it for images, text, and speech. But they were starting to get traction. Actually, it's funny. They had a pitch deck, and Travis Kalanick, who was the obviously founder and CEO of Uber, was on their board, and he was like, "Yo, like take this machine learning stuff out of the pitch deck. And this was 2008, I think, or
Sure.
something like that. And it's funny, like fast forward, things have changed so much.
Yeah.
Now you just put AI in anything. I'm sure this is an
Yeah. You
AI
actually have
podcast.
to have it as prerequisite. Yeah.
But back then it was very, very different. But anyway, they got traction while I was doing serious business. They were working out of our office, and then they landed, I think, a large contract with eBay to do a bunch of data labeling with eBay at the time. And they were like, they raised venture from Trinity Capital and Bessemer Venture Partners. And they were like, yo, don't stay at Zynga. I would have joined the corp dev team at Zynga. Don't stay at Zynga. Come run operations for us at Crowdflower. So we did that for 2 years, and we actually initially had a managed services business. And it was awesome. It was the first time I got a taste of kind of B2B, where we were talking to other businesses and selling to other businesses. And pretty quickly, I realized that this was going to be my wheelhouse, because all the businesses before, I'd been B2C. I'd done business operations, but I wasn't really, like directly impacting the revenue line.
Sure.
And I saw a path to a lot more value for me and growth for me. And so I started doing marketing there, and then inside sales. About 2 years in, the board brought in a CEO from the outside. He had come from Charles Schwab, so he had a consulting background, great pedigree. He ended up firing me and the whole management team. And so I went off on.
Did he bring in his own people?
Yeah, so he did have some of his own people. I think also he looked at me and was like, who is this junior dude, who we now have running marketing. And
What's your name again?
Don't really need to do business operations when I have a CFO that I've worked with for 20 years. Of course, at the time I was like, I was like, whatever. Not like I didn't care. I was like deeply hurt, but I was like, I'll show you.
Sure.
And so that's what I did. I went and did nothing but SaaS sales really for the next 4 to 6 years.
Okay.
Was a part of a company called Vidcaster, where we did video hosting, and ran sales, and then was the CRO, and then was the COO there. We ended up exiting that business to actually one of the investors bought out the business.
So you really found your wheels at that point in sales, B2B sales.
Yeah, 100%. And it was as soon as, and it helped that I had been around so many very technical folks.
Sure.
That for me, I realized that the best way to do great sales is really to become a trusted advisor to your end customer. And if there's something that you could teach them, where, the kind of what's in it for me, for your end customer, if there was something you could show them that would make their life better, particularly at work, that people were willing to pay for that. And so, I had really, really found my footing there.
So let's go back a little bit to your journey up to Crowdflower. What was that like, being a non-technical person in the operations of a lot of technical type of companies? I mean, did you feel like a fish out of water, or did it, was your placement there okay? And so you didn't really have to speak the language, or what was that like?
No, I was 100% a fish out of water, especially at first. I felt like people were speaking gibberish, and I was, like trying to decipher all of it. I think a couple things played to my advantage, though, over time. Is one, like I shared, always, this is one thing that I've naturally been good at. I realized, like, hey, if I just find the smartest people in the room and I say, like, hey, how can I make your life easier? A lot of good is going to come from that, good opportunities and good connections. And so that's what I did. I never really had an ego about anything that I did. And so I just went around figuring out how I can make these folks' lives more useful. And then it was San Francisco in 2008, I guess. 2006, starting in 2006, and so I was living with a bunch of engineers, we was, sharing a house with two other
so you
folks.
got to know like how they think and how they operate and their mannerisms and all that. Yeah. That helps.
Yeah, and also I just got to, I didn't open up a terminal and start coding, but I became very fluent with all of the things that I would need
The
to
lingo.
be
Yeah.
proficient. And anyway, so for me, there was a lot of growth, and I mean, even to this day, sometimes I feel like, oh, like, am I really an insider? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's CEO of the company, but
Well, so some to me, I mean, I'm glad you said that because to me, I think that would almost give you an edge because I know as consultant, I come in from the outside and I have the edge because I can see with fresh eyes. I can see things objectively. I can speak truth into a situation that they can't really see around the corner.
yeah, yeah.
So if you had that feeling and thought for so long, you really had to kind of be scrappy to stay alive in those environments to some degree. If you carry that along in your identity, I think you probably have a little bit of an edge, almost unknowingly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think people, like, especially when it came to like moving people around and where people should be in the org and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some of my natural skill sets. And then the other thing that, one of my superpowers is taking like a complex topic and communicating it really clearly in simple terms.
Yeah, and it takes
And
an outsider,
yeah.
non-technical person sometimes to be able to do that.
Yeah, and for me, I had to really understand things, especially as I got deeper into machine learning. When I ended up going back to Crowdflower, but when I went back to Crowdflower, got deeper into machine learning, a lot of the things that we were doing was new for technical folks at some of these companies,
Sure.
and so really understanding all of that stuff for me, I'm a slow learner, but when I get it, I'm like a steel trap, and
Yeah.
so for me to understand it. I had to be able to explain it clearly.
Do you put that one on your resume? I'm a slow learner.
Slow learner, yes. slow learner with great retention.
Yeah, there you go. So when you went back to Crowdflower, was that like they took you back? I mean, I'm sure it wasn't. Or was it like, hey, you improved yourself and now they have you come back in full regale?
No, they came crawling back,
That's
begging,
what I thought.
begging for my return. No,
Yeah.
well, the business changed a lot. I left, and they were a managed service business at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I did nothing but SaaS sales after that, and I was still very friendly with the founders. And I was like, "Yo, y'all should be doing SaaS." Like, I don't know why. And they brought in a different CEO, COO from the outside, who later became the CEO, who had the same, that was his playbook. He came in, he made a SaaS business, and then the founders were like, "Hey, Ryan might be available and might be on the market." I met that COO, and we hit it off and came in pretty quickly as the VP of sales. And it was just right place, right time. A lot of like Apple, they had, we did a really large deal with Apple, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and all of these folks. And this was 2000. I hope I get my dates right. 2000.
No one's checking you on it, so
16 or something like that. No. Yeah. 2015, 16.
Yeah.
And now the big companies were really starting to do machine learning. And the reality is this is changing, but nothing beats training data for machine learning. So like the more training data that these folks had, the better that their models were going to become. Tesla was doing a ton of data labeling for self-driving vehicles and road recognition. And so, we very quickly had a top tier list of customers. We ramped the business pretty impressively over the next 4 years, and then sold the business to a company called Appen, who was actually an outsourcing firm that did a lot of data labeling, and they were looking to modernize and really automate the process of data labeling and control for quality the way that we did. The way that Crowdflower worked is we sold a SaaS license that was access to the platform. We would get the data from a Tesla or an Uber or whoever, give it to BPOs around the world, aggregate the results, control for quality, and then give it back to them in a way that was really consumable for their algorithms. And so Appen wanted those capabilities. Appen had, a few very large customers in that space. And frankly, Lucas and Chris, the founders, were brilliant and were ahead of their time. And I think maybe they go back and say, a little too ahead of their time.
Sure.
The upstart competitor was a company called Scale AI. Right when we exited, they were starting to hit their stride. And now, I think Facebook just invested in them for half their business at like $15 billion valuation.
Wow.
And, we had a very meaningful exit at Crowdflower, but nowhere near, $30 billion.
Timing.
Timing is everything. So maybe a little early on that. They went on to start a great business called Weights and Biases, which is now a part of CoreWeave, which has been a big IPO this year. But at that same time, I met the founders of Lob, and my first question was like, does anyone send direct mail? And I started to hear a little bit more about the business and the scale and the revenue. And I was really, really impressed. And I knew the business model because Lob had a business model where we sold a technology, but then we offered the fulfillment of that technology, like the actual creation and delivery of the mail pieces. And then we had a model where we would charge separately. So we would charge for the SaaS license and then on a per unit basis for the mail fee. That is the exact same model that Crowdflower had. So that kind of perked my interest. And then when I looked into the direct mail space, I was like, holy cow, there are like 100 billion mail pieces sent every year. This is a $77 billion market, and there's no incumbent technology player. And on top of that, I've been, with all these machine learning wizards for, almost a decade or, 15 years. And, if we go into the direct mail space, there's definitely competition, but it's not whiz bang kids from Harvard and Stanford who are starting machine learning businesses.
Sure. So if I'm looking at it from the outside, trying to poke holes in it, my first question is, and maybe you had the same type of questioning and train of thought coming into it, is when you look at the market for that, the market cap there for that service, is this just, being in marketing land, I don't work with a lot of enterprise companies, but I am privy to what's going on with the agencies and that kind of thing. And there's a lot of traditional CEOs or marketers that are way behind the times with their marketing, and they're carrying big budgets, right? They're spending millions of dollars, some a month, and a lot of these agencies still have sort of brother-in-law deals with TV channels and cable or whatever, radio maybe. And so I think direct mail could fall into that category pretty easily. And so my question or maybe concern is that maybe it's being propped up by these marketers or brands that are stuck doing this thing because it's what they've always done. And they just have stubborn leadership that won't change to digital. I mean, because it's crazy to say that, but it's still true. Like there's some that are not investing in, digital ads. So I wonder if, how much of the market is propped up where they're spending the money and they're sending the stuff, but at some point they may abandon it because they realize there's not an ROI.
Yeah, totally. Well, there's a lot in that. So the first thing is there is absolutely, I won't say at least the large customers. We work with customers large and small, but some of the world's largest mailers are on the Lob platform. I wouldn't say that those businesses don't do digital, but there is a lot of legacy thinking and even legacy budgeting that goes, and people don't want to leave something that has been working. And a little microcosm of this is that we actually face this when we talk to them about really moving towards what we call digital parity, but just like making it as easy to use a direct mail piece as an email, right? Being able to, we don't think of a postcard really as a postcard. We just think of it like a web page with some dimensions. And then with Lob, we use HTML, and you can send merge variables and personalize any different piece of that postcard that you
Okay.
want. And it's a new way of thinking and investing where, hey, instead of like, hey, we're just going to blanket every household in this zip code, let's actually use data that we have on these people to hit them with the right message at the right time, right? And so we have faced that, like just in our channel that you're worried is being propped up by other channels. And the way that I think about it, not just think about it, the way that I've seen in the market is it's actually email and ads that are like, especially email, that are like super saturated. Where like for me, my email inbox is a graveyard. I pretty much just look at Slack, and then I scan through my emails. I do not look at promotional emails. A Google ad or a Facebook ad, once you find something that works, it will immediately get more expensive because other people will find out that it works and they bid you up. Whereas a placement in a mailbox, it costs, if you sign with Lob, we'll charge you the same amount, for your first mail piece and your, 20 millionth mail piece.
You're not at risk of someone finding out what you're doing.
Exactly.
I mean, as quickly, probably.
Yeah. That and the other thing is the response rates, and again, it varies by industry and things like that. You have to understand what formats work for different industries. But like a good email open rate is like 20% to 40%, maybe. Is that probably about right?
Yeah. I mean, my clients get like 60, 70, 80%, but
really,
it just,
So like,
I mean, honestly, my take is this is a great parallel because I agree with you that I look at all channels and I'm sort of ambivalent or agnostic on terms of channels. It's really more about your message and targeted audience and connecting those two. So you're not doing your job as a marketer if you can't take almost any medium or any channel and make it work for you. Now, I say that kind of blanketly, but there are some channels won't work for you because your audience is not there. But with that said, I think this is a great example because email inbox can be a graveyard. It can also be a gold mine, depending on how you use it and what you're saying to whom. Same thing with direct mail. Same thing with a bus ad. However you want to, the plane flying in the sky. I agree with you in that. I think astute marketer needs to be at the helm for that to work.
Yeah, no, I agree. And what we found and what we share with folks is that like, we have some folks who are like, well, you're competing for budget with digital and blah, blah, blah. And we can get into our kind of specific focus within the channel, which is a lot more around speed and now cost. But the reality is we see direct mail as an omni-channel communication tool. It should be, what I found was I went into these organizations and everyone was, talking about digital transformation. And, having been in AI and machine learning for many, many years prior to that, nobody was using those buzzwords because they were they're digitally native companies.
Right.
And so I was like, what the heck does this mean? And then I realized what it means is you got all these systems and all this data and they don't talk to each other. And if they could talk to each other, you could be a lot coherent in your message to the customer. You could be a lot more efficient with your business. You wouldn't have to throw bodies at all of these problems. And for me, light bulb went off. I was like, oh man, like direct mail was divorced from every single digital transformation initiative that I encountered my first probably 2 to 3 years at Lob. And so our message to the larger mailers was simply that, which is, hey, let's no longer divorce direct mail from your digital transformation initiative. Let's put it right in the middle. And if you're managing a mail program, we're going to turn you from Mailhouse Melvin to ROI Rockstar, right?
I like that.
You're no longer going to be relegated to the basement talking about paperweight and paper specs.
Yeah. You're
going to be talking about, performance and cost savings and efficiency. And I think all marketing communication should be that way. And so like, I'll give you an example. And this is not marketing communication, but they do market. I use LabCorp to get blood drawn and things like that. I had an outstanding LabCorp bill. They sent me a text message, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I got to pay that."
Mm-hmm.
Forgot about it. They then sent me a physical mail piece, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I've got to pay that." And so I was like, "All right, I've got the mail." I was going through doing my DMV, my LabCorp, and then I didn't write a check. I went back to the text message. I
Yep.
clicked the link,
Yep.
and then I went and
You
paid
knew it was
Lab.
there. Yep.
Right. And so,
That's funny.
that is how I think, like good communication from a business works with a customer or
I
prospect.
agree. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I think so. So then the the sort of value add or competitive advantage here is making direct mail more efficient, faster, and more cost effective.
Yeah.
Through with technology. Assuming that's what you're doing, then I can fully get on board with adding it as part of your stack for marketing.
Yeah.
And and ideally managing it within an existing platform like a HubSpot or CRM or something like that.
Exactly.
Because that's what I'm thinking about is as you're talking is really today you're opening my eyes to this. I think direct mail could fully live in its own space, but contributing to that omnipresence of your marketing message or customer service or even collections.
Yeah.
Because I have the same thing. I got stuff sitting at my desk doing the same thing. But I'm thinking about these warm email sequences and landing pages and things like that. That it sounds like if we could make direct mail that, then really we have the advantage to us to really surround our audience more effectively.
Yeah, 100%. And we see this like all the time. And to give you an idea, like we have integrations with HubSpot, Braze, Iterable, Salesforce, and we have customers who every mail piece they trigger and lob is through their Braze instance.
Mm-hmm.
We are under no illusion that marketers are going to live out of their direct mail like lob dashboard, right? Like that's not. We're not trying to get them to come live there. But then we have a large amount of folks who actually have directly integrated via API, which allows them to do some really fun and cool things. And for us, we call it like, hey, we need to build the best front door possible to make it as easy to on-ramp onto Lob and as time and cost effective to send a mail piece, right? And so one of the things that we've really been after over the last year and a half is reducing the friction it takes to send a mail piece. It should be just as easy as sending an email. And frankly, with some of our folks, and actually a large majority of our top customers, it's easier. Like we literally, there's no send button. It's all event based and trigger based. Now, if they have a campaign, they can press send. But all of those things are based on behaviors that happen in their CRM or their marketing automation platform.
That's amazing. So have you seen that? What's the adoption like once someone gets into using Lob? Is that, because there's a switch there, it has to happen. I think. What's that adoption rate look like?
Well, I won't give you like our absolute NRR numbers here, but
that's not what I'm
a couple interesting things. My wife works in digital ads, and we've gotten to know a bunch of performance marketing companies because we're trying to assess like where in the landscape do we fall? Like, should we be leaning more heavily into performance marketing and other channels, right? And really, should we be a performance marketing business? And spoiler alert, that's not us, right? Okay. We're actually not going to be venturing in any time in the near term into new channels. Our secret sauce is we have a print delivery network of a dozen or so printers, all with multiple sites spread throughout the U.S., with logistics partners spread throughout the U.S. that allow us to get mail faster than anyone else to the mailbox and allow us to use APIs to manage the logistics or the movement of the mail to decrease costs. And it looks like, and this is not done, but the USPS is going to be moving to a model next year in postage where instead of a flat rate for a postage piece, it'll be based on where it entered the USPS mail stream. So this is a huge opportunity for Lob because we're better suited to actually digitally move all the mail pieces. Don't print them. We're going to digitally move them. We're going to print them in all of the right zones, and then we're going to get our customers the best postage rate, right?
That's
because,
amazing.
back to usage. One of the things I found with performance marketing businesses, and when you're focused almost exclusively on performance marketing with direct mail, the retention rate it's hard to get a really great NRR. You know what I mean? Like, you'd really love to see your NRR be above 120%. That means that year over year, you're not losing money. In fact, your customers are growing, by 20% year over year. And what we have found, and this may be Lob specific, when we over index on just the performance marketer, somebody like you sounds like just super ruthless about, I don't care about the channel when it is, I'm just going to send the right piece. Those folks tend to be digitally native, and as ruthless as they, are and say they are, they actually do have a proclivity for channels. They probably have always on like Facebook or LinkedIn campaigns. There's a set of people that have always on business as usual direct mail campaigns, right? But they care a lot about speed and cost, right? And so those are the folks that we've really been focusing on over the last, especially year and a half, and being faster and lowering the barrier to entry for folks.
Yeah.
But I think just suffice it to say that on a year over year basis, our existing customer cohorts grow. They don't contract. And that was something that for all marketing channels kind of made me nervous, because the businesses that I was a part of most recently prior to Lob had great NRR and NDR is really what we measure, which is net dollar retention. It just makes it a little less noisy, but really great NDR. And so my concern with this type of business is like, how sticky is it? And the reality is for Lob, our cohorts grow and grow at a healthy pace, which I think is evidence in and of itself.
So for the customers that come through that do stick, I'm assuming they're seeing their metrics, and ROI trending the right direction. Is that the case?
Oh, 100%. We have the State of Direct Mail report where we partner with Comper Media. We go out, we talk to, I think it's 500 business executives, and then we canvass 2,000 consumers, and we take stock of direct mail and different direct mail channels and performance. But time and time again, it's like we've been doing this report for 3 years. It is super clear that direct mail is not only a high performing channel, but for many folks, it's their highest performing channel. The hard part is for some folks to get over is like, oh, you mean I'm going to spend 40 cents to send a mail piece, right? When I could do an email for free or an ad for a much lower CPM, right? And so that is, that requires like us being a trusted advisor with them and saying like, hey, let's teach you how to do a holdout campaign, one where you're doing emails and one where you're doing email and direct mail and one where you're doing just direct mail.
Yeah.
And let's run that. Let's run that, for 100,000 mail pieces. You don't have to be sending millions of mail pieces or even tens of thousands of mail pieces.
Yeah.
Let's look at how we're going to model that together, and you be the judge, right? But just to give you some anecdotes, like we saw an e-commerce business that we had do a dormant user campaign. So it was a user that they hadn't unsubscribed from.
Sure.
It's an online, you buy clothes online, you can have subscriptions and things like that. And the people hadn't left, but they've been blasting them with emails to no avail.
Yep.
And then they started using direct mail, and it was like literally like 27, 28 times more effective to send a direct mail piece in these win back campaigns. Cross sell is like another one. When like the world is moving digital, we understand that, right? That's why we're helping bring digital parity to direct mail. But the reality is that people are starved for real world connection. And when you get a well-timed mail piece that is personalized to your liking, like let's say you're going to Best Buy and we send you an item that you viewed online and a map to the local Best Buy, right? That's specific to you. All of a sudden you've got this high value piece for your end customer. We're like, hey, I'm really like, this is timely. The brand knows me. The conversions are fantastic, right? And people do crave that real world connection. I think where it goes awry is when it becomes this like, hey, we're going to blanket every mailbox with dear resident.
Generic. Yeah. I think personalization is a big key there. So let's go back to your sales hiatus that you went off, from Crowdflower and came back, and you picked up all these skills for B2B sales, and drill into here this idea of, we talked about adoption through, but what about those initial conversations? Like people like myself or anybody who's just not thinking about direct mail at all, not your always on primary customers, but like your secondary, tertiary customers. Like how do you get in front of them to get them to open that dialogue? And then when you open the dialogue, how quickly do they go from, I'm not even thinking about direct mail, to, wow, this actually can be part of our mix?
Yeah. So we do it a couple of different ways. One, we have a large self-service platform. It's very developer focused. It's less marketer focused. Okay. But thousands of customers on this self-service platform for them to taste it themselves. And we've done a lot of work in the last year making the onboarding of it easier so that maybe you don't have to be a developer to go get started with it, because it was like, it wasn't hard, but it's like API keys and API documentation and all of this stuff. And so for us, like, we love, and the majority of our large customers today were at some point on our developer platform. But so we want to make it really accessible and easy for folks to sign up, right? But then, we get in conversations with folks who are new to the channel, right? And we begin, and I will say that this had been a large portion of our business for not so much in the last year, but like maybe 2 to 3 years ago, for about 2 to 3 years. And we were having a lot of these conversations, and frankly, successfully having a lot of these conversations. What we've since decided, though, is that, hey, if you're in that camp, we're going to really focus you towards our self-service platform. We do have self-service account management who can like help coach people through. But we're going to push you towards, and then let's get you some success there. And then we can talk about a larger like sales engagement with a contract and all of that. Instead, our sales folks are very focused on, on more builders. So people who send a few million mail pieces a year at least, understand like they have to optimize postage, and we can really help those people. But when we're talking to folks who we call these folks specialists, so folks who are specialists or brand new to direct mail, it works best to like challenge people's thinking. Like there's an old book like The Challenger Shell that I think works really well.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
If you can challenge someone's thinking and then actually teach them something, then all of a sudden you're in the ball game. And so if you're able to say like, hey, like what is your perception of direct mail? Slow, antiquated, not personalized, not on time. And I were to say like, hey, what if it could be your most cost-effective channel and you would have your highest conversions, with direct mail? Like that gets you in the conversation. And then all of a sudden we say like, hey, with Lob, it's as easy as sending an email. And in fact, like if you're willing to integrate via API, you don't even need to click send. Or like, hey, you live in Salesforce Journey Builder, no problem. It's just a tile, right? And then we'll map out a journey for you. And why don't you go and run a test? Like I said, where you have a holdout group and a journey with an email, without an email, with a postcard, and without a postcard. And then let's just measure the results. And then we start talking about things like, there's a number of companies that do this, but we just started an audience offering. So people are always looking for a new audience to target.
Okay.
So what if we could give you a list of folks that fit your demographics? And maybe even better, what if we were able to give you a pixel that you could put on your website, and then we would match an IP address. And then we would use that to then target people who are interested in your offering or your service, right? And then their eyes really light up because of all of those digital capabilities. The other thing is that, historically Lob had not demoed great because it's like an API solution. It's hard to demo.
Yeah.
But now with some of this like IP to pixel match that demos well, but also just some of the immersive experiences that we have with QR codes, where like folks can scan a QR code with a personalized URL, go to a personalized landing page that we can host, and you can look at all of their web activity, and you can see not just conversions, but what they did. Now, all of a sudden, because these folks are just like thirsty for new names and new channels where they think that they have an unfair advantage. And so the talk track really becomes around those things.
That's amazing. There's a lot going through my mind right now. Questions I could ask, but we're getting long. We're at 46 minutes here, so we're gonna wrap it up. But
cool.
This has been a very interesting conversation. I appreciate you coming on. It's really opened my eyes to this as a like legitimate solution, and I'm already thinking of clients I'm working with that could potentially utilize this. Probably on a smaller scale, but I guess let's wrap up with that question. On a smaller scale, what is the absolute smallest amount of mail you could send to I mean, not that you want to send one piece to test it, because what are you going to find out with that? But like, I guess that's the question: is what's the smallest amount that you could send or should send to test it as a smaller company?
Yeah. So, I mean, with Lob, just to be clear, you could send one piece, or you could send 100 million pieces in a given year, right? Like we're agnostic to that, but my recommendation would be that you actually do send one piece, just to see like, hey, can I do this, and how easy is it, right? And then from there, what I would recommend is, and I think this is actually really important, what are you trying to accomplish? Like, are you trying to win back customers that have left, right? Let's then run a test with that. Are you trying to cross-sell a new product and you want to use mail as an opportunity for that? Then let's try that. Are you trying to do a better job at collections? Okay, let's do mail for that. So you set up a discrete test and you give yourself, I'd say 90 days, but really it takes you like a day to get set up on Lob, especially if it's a smaller business with technical folks. And then, I'd like you to use a sample size that was big enough to have some sort of statistical significance, right? So it doesn't have to be 100,000 pieces, but hey, let's say, hey, let's spend $10,000 or even $5,000, but $10,000 would be great. You can easily get 20,000 mail pieces, including postage, sent and delivered. And then let's go run a campaign that's testing whatever hypothesis that we have, and then go from there. And so we work with folks that have a lot of like big companies, but multiple brands, right? So what they'll do is they'll run a test for one of the brands. They'll go see how it goes. They'll go run a test for another one of the brands, see how it goes, and then so on and so forth. And let's say they have 3 or 4 brands. Then they understand what brand responds the best to it. Certain demographics are gonna, depending on the industry, are gonna perform better. Certain formats are gonna perform better with certain industries. Like for instance, we have a customer that does marketing to Medicaid patients direct from the doctor. Letters. You don't send postcards to those people. You send a letter, right? And then you take those results and then you build those. As long as they perform, if they don't perform, go on to your next thing, go on to your next channel, right? I'm not trying to get you to send communications that don't work.
Right.
But then the ones that do perform become your business as usual campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we always have people do is, let's say you're sending, 10, you get to the point where you're sending 10,000 mail pieces a month. Let's take 1,000 of those.
Yeah. Reinvest.
And then let's have like a racehorse framework where we're testing different variants. And so you always have a series of racehorses going, and you always have a control, and then we're beating control.
Love it. That's great. I think that's great. This has been awesome. Thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. If people want to find you, where should we send them?
Yeah. So the best place to go is lob.com. If you're interested, feel free to go to LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is just my name, Ryan J. Ferrier at LinkedIn or on LinkedIn, and hook up with me there. I'll be candid. I'm not on, I have a Facebook account, but I haven't been like on it in like a decade. Like I don't tweet. And the marketing team always gets on me on that. And I don't use Instagram.
You're running a direct mail business. It is in line. It's on.
Yeah. But like, for me, our end product creates real world connection, and I like deeper, authentic connections. And so I'd much rather you friend me on LinkedIn. But if you want to know about more about Lob or our services, go to lob.com, and you can write in there, and someone will be happy to either correspond with you over email or get on a phone call with you.
Why Lob? Where did the name come from?
So the co-founders, this is really brilliant. Our co-founders were in Y Combinator, and Paul Graham was like, I can't remember the name. I should remember the name. But Paul Graham was like, you all should be like Ready Print or something. And they were like, I don't like really want to market ourselves as just like a better printer, right?
Yeah, right.
And so they started looking just for 3-letter domains. And they found lob.com. And it was for sale, I think, for $40,000. Okay. I may have the numbers wrong, but somewhere around there, $40,000. But they had just started the business, and so they hadn't even. I think they had a seed round, and so I think they had maybe $100,000 as a business, and so they were not going to spend 40% of that on a domain name.
Yeah.
And so they wrote to the dude who turned out to be a Y Combinator alum, actually.
Funny.
And they said, let us rent the domain for a year. We'll pay you $10,000. If we get funding in a year, then we will give you an additional $40,000. So we'll actually pay you $50,000 for the domain. And they got funding like 3 months later, bought the domain. And it's history. I mean, the fact that they have a 3-letter domain, I was like, this is pretty impressive.
That's clever.
Yeah.
I like
so
it.
that's the story behind it.
But no like symbolism in the name. I mean,
well, so what the story that they told is that like, hey, like when you lob something, you throw it up in the sky, and the whole impetus was that they were going to bring direct mail to the cloud, similar to how AWS had moved storage to the cloud, right?
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah. But yeah, really fortunate that they got that domain. I think it's pretty money.
For sure. That's cool. All right. Well, we'll see you on LinkedIn if you're there, and we'll stop by your house after we connect with you on Facebook.
Sounds good. All right, man.
We'll have to have you back sometime. But thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you, dude.
All right.